Well, hello there, you beautiful, beautiful people. I hope you're all well on this fabulous, fabulous Tuesday. It's Tuesday already, and you're looking fantastic, by the way. But we're going to get straight into the meat and potatoes because we're going to be talking about the Idaho 4. And hold on, before you start grilling me, not the normal Idaho 4, but the other Idaho 4. The Idaho 4 that came about on the 7th of June this year. Now, some of you may have heard of this, some of you won't, but let's just say there's definitely something in the water when it comes to Idaho, and this is certainly somewhere that I would not want to live right now. So what happened? What happened, I hear you say. And what happened is this. So, this, I'm not even going to try and say, I'm going to try and say his name, Majorjan Kayla. That's what I think. Again, if I haven't pronounced that right, I am deeply, deeply sorry. No, I'm not. But yeah, so we're going to call him Kayla from now on. And Kayla is a 31-year-old. Now, it would appear that Kayla and his partner and his young children, they live in a house and they're sharing it with the other Idaho 4. So, now, don't get me wrong, you know, you have good neighbours and you can have bad neighbours, and sometimes you have bad neighbours and they live next door, and that's annoying enough. But can you imagine all of you living in the same fucking house? Now, that could really bring out some tension, couldn't it? And that could be done just by one of the families playing loud music and stuff like that. But what would you do if you had young girls, for instance, and the other family had young teenage boys, 18 and 16, and one of those teenage boys stands at the window with his meat and two veg out, stroking the old bishop in front of your children? What would you do? Now, some of you would say, I would flip out, I'd go crazy, I won't be very happy. Some of you would go down the route of law, I would contact law enforcement. Well, believe it or not, Kayla did. He first of all went to law enforcement and said, look, I'm not very happy because this family who live in the same building as me, so really annoying neighbours, one of the teenage sons, the older one of the two, he's flipped out the bishop and started stroking his hair in front of my children, and I'm not happy about it, and this needs to be dealt with. So police come out. They don't really handle it. There's some kind of confusion over, was there a report done, was there not? It was said that they were advised, the prosecutors were advised that they should really press charges for a misdemeanor, and there seemed to be a delay in doing so. I think, reading between the lines, that it looks like the shit hit the fan on June the 7th, and then law enforcement tried to dot their I's and cross their T's on that day by then filing what should have been filed perhaps days ago. But anyway, I digress. So from the parents' perspective, so from Kayla's perspective, he's gone to the police and said, look, this is what's happened. I'm not happy about it. It seems that this wasn't a one-off. This was something that had gone on and escalated. Kayla had apparently, and his partner, had an argument with the boy's parents, the boy's father, and it would appear that the father wasn't perhaps taking this accusation seriously. He'd been told, didn't really listen, turned into an argument, the rest is history. So, things have escalated, and this has resulted on June the 7th of Kayla walking into the neighbour's house, well, the same house, their part of the house, and shooting all of them. Close range, done, whole family wiped out, annihilated. Police have arrived. After doing so, Kayla has gone to his partner and said, look, there's my wallet, there's everything. Just tell the kids that I protected them. I did what needed to be done to keep them safe. And now we have, obviously, a court case. We're having a court case, and this is going to be an interesting one. It's certainly different when you look at the court documentation in terms of this case versus something like the other Idaho 4. It's going very, very differently. And we also see a similar situation of the burglary being added to the list of charges like we do in Brian Koberger's docket. So there seems to be what they do when somebody enters someone else's house with the intention to commit a nefarious act. I would imagine that the burglary is what gives them the premeditation hook. That's my grasp on it. You enter this property with intent, and that intent then led to this other act. It would appear at this stage that a not guilty plea has been entered on behalf of Kayla, and this is going to be playing out. Now, it would appear from the start that he's held his hands up and said he did it. So to then turn around and say, you know, not guilty, I believe that this is going to be one of these where they try to angle the diminished responsibility at that time. He was placed in a position where he felt that his family were at risk. He'd approached law enforcement. Law enforcement had not taken the situation seriously. Things had exacerbated through a discussion between the families, and the rest is history. So I don't know whether you've heard about this case, whether this is the first time hearing about it or not, but I will be following this case certainly as we find out more about it and what is going to happen. Doesn't look like it's going to end well. We know how Idaho kind of behave with things like this. It'll be interesting to run the Idaho4-1 and Idaho4-2 side by side and just see how they progress and see whether they do indeed operate similar, the same. Get there in the end. And yeah, just be interesting to see how these go. But let me know down below, what would you do if you was in a similar situation and you felt that your family was at risk? If you had small children and this had happened to you, what would you do? What would your stance be? Especially if you'd already been to law enforcement had seemingly not done anything, and you genuinely thought that your family was at risk. Is this a situation that anybody could find themselves in, a sad situation at that? Or is this something else? Do you feel that this guy truly does deserve the death penalty, and at the end of the day he killed 4 people, including 4 young teenage boys, and the fact that one of the teenage boys did have his meat and 2 veg out and waving it about in front of small children? That shouldn't be taken into consideration. If you're interested to know your thoughts, later on we'll be talking about the Rex Herman case and the Gilgo Beach. Get there in a minute as well. Gilgo Beach, and yeah, just a short one as I dip my toes in that case because there's a lot going on in that. But I'll catch you all in the next one.